To order. Welcome to meeting number 6 of the House Committee Standing Committee on Canadian Heritage. And I would like to acknowledge that this meeting is taking place on the unceded traditional territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. Little housekeeping before we started. The Minister of Canadian Heritage has confirmed that he will be available to the committee on Monday, February the 28th from 3:30 to 4:30, and that the 4:30 to 5:30 slot will be filled by his bureaucrats, his officials. Wednesday, February the 16th, we will proceed to the study on Rogers Communications takeover of Shaw, which is a one-meeting study. For that meeting, if the committee is in agreement, we will have 2 one-hour panels. Pursuant to the motion adopted by the committee on Monday, January the 31st, 2022, however, the committee is meeting at this point in time, and we have witnesses to speak with us on the challenges related to the recovery of the arts, culture, and heritage and sports sectors, which have been deeply impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format, and that means that there are some people in a room and there are some people at home. Given the ongoing pandemic situation and in the light of the recommendations from Health Canada, as well as the directive of the Board of Internal Economy on Tuesday, October the 19th, to remain healthy and safe, all those attending the meeting in person are to maintain a 2-meter physical distancing, must wear a non-medical mask when circulating in the room, and it's highly recommended that the mask be worn at all times, including when seated, and I always like to add, including when speaking. Must use a hand sanitizer in the room. As a chair, I will be enforcing those measures for the duration of the meeting. And for those participating virtually, I want to outline a few rules below. You may speak in the official language of your choice. Interpretation services are available for the meeting. You have the choice at the bottom of your screen of either floor, English, or French. If interpretation is lost, please let me know immediately, and we will ensure that interpretation is properly restored before returning to the proceedings. Before speaking, please wait until I recognize you by name, and I also hope that you will unmute your mics at all times, or mute your mic, sorry, at all times. And when I call your name, you will unmute it and you'll speak. And so, with your permission, we will begin, starting with witnesses, the Art Gallery of Hamilton, the Canadian Art Museum Directors Organization, the Canadian Women in Sport, Conseil Québécois du Théâtre, Indigenous Performing Arts Alliance, and Special Olympics Canada. So if we will begin with the witnesses. You will all have 5 minutes to speak, and at 1 minute, I will just go 1 minute. Do not be distracted. I'm just giving you a timeline so you can wrap it up if you can. And if you can't finish everything you wanted to say, you will have opportunity during the question and answer session to be able to answer some other things that you felt you wanted to say at the time. And that'll be followed by a question and answer with the committee members. But we will begin now with the Art Gallery of Hamilton. Shelley Falconer, for 5 minutes, Ms. Falconer.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to present today. I'm honored to be here with all of you and my colleagues from the sector, including my fellow CAMDO members, Jean-François Bellil and Alexandra Bazac. I will be speaking to you today specifically about the impact of the pandemic on the Art Gallery of Hamilton and then relating it to some of the broader sectorial needs. But first, a little background. At 108 years old, the Art Gallery of Hamilton is Ontario's oldest municipal art gallery and the province's 3rd largest public art collection, with a repository of over 10,000 significant works by regional, Indigenous, national and international artists. And of course, we are located in the city of Hamilton, which is one of Ontario and Canada's fastest growing cities. We are indeed part of Ontario's arts, culture and heritage sector, representing before COVID almost 28 billion or 4.1% of the province's GDP and over 300,000 jobs. In fact, the arts and culture tourist spends more, stays longer, and engages in other sectors of the economy, generating almost 4 billion annually in GDP. This is, of course, in addition to an annual educational value of 3.1 billion across Canada. The AGH's actual economic impact locally is 18 million and almost 24 million to the provincial economy. I mention these facts not to justify the arts on economic terms alone, but to underline the fact that our cultural institutions must be seen as more than repositories of objects bringing important cultural, educational, and social value. We also represent a significant economic driver in and of itself, and we provide a variety of direct and indirect economic benefits, as well as serving a crucial intellectual resource that cannot be replaced by other activities or institutions. Today, like many arts institutions, our institution counts on a tremendous amount of private support. However, the AGH relies on this private support more than most. In fact, close to half of the AGH's operating revenue in 2019 came from individuals and corporations, with the average revenue for an art gallery in Canada being at 33%, we typically double that number. So for example, in 2019, pre-pandemic, we exceeded 70%. And although the AGH receives government funding, unlike our national, provincial, and municipal counterparts, we remain, for our size of collection and building, we're about 88,000 square feet, one of the least government-funded art galleries in the country. So what has been the impact of COVID? Well, like everyone else, the pandemic has disrupted most of the AGH's activities and our plans for the past 2 years, and I think certainly probably for the next few years. Our earned revenues have been severely impacted to the tune of several millions. Our sponsorships and donations, memberships and admission have been eroded. However, our ongoing commitment to community engagement remains powerful. We were one of the first galleries to quickly pivot to online programming, supporting a number of the curriculum educational needs with very close relationships with our local school boards. We're also deeply engaged in supporting wellness through the arts with our award-winning programs. And of course, I think we are all well aware of the much needed and dramatic increase in mental health needs in our communities. And we're deeply grateful to the support of the Federal Dementia Strategic Fund, which is supporting us with a national program. We're also very deeply grateful to the government for the ongoing federal programs that have allowed us to maintain much of our staff and of course, to continue to the programming we do. And although we're deeply grateful, I would like to draw your attention to some areas of concern in order to see the sector survive. Long-term operating support for the sector has not grown in keeping with the rate of increased expenses. We have seen year-over-year declines in government support at all levels. And considering the current rate of inflation, this is a concern. Across Canada as a whole, the 2019 survey of heritage institutions indicated that 43.6% of our Canadian cultural organizations have aging infrastructure with fair to poor or requiring attention. This is going to be an ongoing concern, and certainly the last few years have only made all of these concerns much deeper. We remain confident that with your government's renewed commitment to the sector, you'll recognize and support the essential role that institutions like the AGH play in bringing our collections to the public so we can help build a strong, vibrant economy in years to come, a sense of well-being, identity, and a place for all of our citizens. Thank you for the opportunity to present today.
Thank you very much. That was very, very efficient. Thank you. So I will now move to Canadian Art Museum Directors Organization, Alexandra Bazak, President, Jean-François Bellil, Vice President, and you may split your 5 minutes or however you wish to speak.
I think that's the plan. So we're going to go back and forth a little bit. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the Standing Committee. Bon après-midi et merci de nous avoir.
Thank you for your invitation to appear before you today.
It is a privilege for CAMDO AUDMAC, the Canadian Art Museum Directors Organization, Organisation des Directeurs des Musées d'Art.
Canadian Art Museum Directors Organization.
CAMDO AUDMAC has existed since 1964 to really strengthen the ability of Canadian Art Museum directors to champion art and its significance in society and to help people imagine and create a better world. Our members are cultural leaders and champions like Shelley, We have over 80 individual directors who oversee Canada's visual arts museums and public art galleries from coast to coast to coast on various treaty lands and unceded territories, such as the Haida Gwaii Museum on the west coast, the Yukon Arts Centre up north, and the Rooms in St. John's, Newfoundland. And so we present and engage art with our communities across Canada with budgets ranging from 300K to 55 million. And our organizations range from international destinations like the Art Gallery of Ontario to the provincial institutions and municipal art galleries like the Art Gallery of Grand Prairie and university galleries as well. So Camdo ODMAC really does facilitate regular peer discussions and activities with our members, and therefore we feel very confident that we have the pulse of their pandemic experience, which is why we're here today. Jean-François.
Bien que les musées d'art de ont été gravement impactés par
art museums and art galleries have been very much affected. They need to exercise and continue exercising their role as community leaders. They've made a significant difference in the life of Canadians across the pandemic. The support of the Canadian Council for the Arts and others have been extremely important. We are very grateful for it. Their financial support has helped us reinvent ourselves on many occasions. Over the past 24 months rather, we have changed our activities, improved our community activities and moved them to the web very successfully, but this was done at a tremendous human and financial cost. The lessons learned over the past 2 years will be very useful in the future of museums and art galleries in Canada.
We're still hurting. Most art museums were closed for a minimum of 7 months last year. Some still are, like the Ottawa Art Gallery and many university galleries. As you know, varied provincial guidelines and the inability to forecast COVID-19 variants and waves has seriously affected all of our members. The main revenue generating activities of our members died in 2020 and never came back. This includes educational and community activities, event and room rentals, philanthropic activities, corporate sponsorships, and membership fees. The pandemic has forced all museums to shuffle their programming at the cost of canceling exhibitions, closing others early, canceling tours in Canada and abroad. Adapting to a shift in visitors, now primarily regional and virtual, has also been a great challenge. Less tangible, but highly important, are the human resources impacts, a sector challenge even in the best of times. The pandemic has further exacerbated this with the employee loss, retention and attraction challenges, impacts on mental well-being of employees and communities, remote and hybrid work adaptations. The future does not look bright financially, as it will take months, if not years, for revenue-generating activities to reach their 2019 levels again. We're actually working on a 3 to 5 years horizon to achieve this.
Madam Chair, this brings us to how the federal government can help us, our members, move forward. So we have a few recommendations. Number one, as key tourism anchors in our communities, our member art galleries and museums need to be able to access the $1 billion over 3 years promised to the tourism sector recovery. This will require some changes to the current financial criteria to reflect cultural not-for-profits. 2, we need to diversify our revenue streams in order to be resilient and sustainable in the long term. And this way, we want to really engage in the already existing Cultural Canada Investment Fund. It's designed for the performing arts, but the visual arts needs it too. Digital funds, number 3, we know are essential to our future, but the time has come where we need to invest in in-house capacity building, no longer strategic planning. Number 4, the CEWS wage subsidy has worked really well for so many of our members, but it needs to be extended. We're not getting out of this anytime soon. And the proposed recovery ticket fund subsidy recovery program, again, is not going to assist museums and galleries that offer free admission like the Ottawa Art Gallery. We have, like Shelley, a lot of other significant revenue streams that have dried up during the pandemic, and so these two need to be eligible. In conclusion, Madam Chair, members of the Standing Committee, as beleaguered citizens emerge from the pandemic's hold, they'll seek the life-affirming inspiration offered by art museums and galleries. Our organizations tell wonderful, complex stories of our communities, and we contribute to the well-being of our citizens. The pandemic.
Thank you, Ms. Beckbeck. I would now like to go to the Canadian Women in Sport, and I think we have Alison Sandemeyer-Grave, Chief Executive Officer.
Hello. Yes, bon après-midi, Madame Présidente et les membres du comité.
Good afternoon.
Sandmeyer Graves, and I'm the CEO of Canadian Women in Sport. Our 40-year-old organization is committed to building an equitable and inclusive sport system that empowers women and girls, all women and girls, within sport and through sport. I'm here today to speak to you about the sports sector's recovery from COVID-19 and to share our recommendations for your considerations. In short, the pandemic has had serious and potentially lasting negative impacts on access to sport in every community in Canada. The effect of this on children and their families is deeply concerning. Without access to sport during COVID, children report that they have found it hard to reduce stress and anxiety, and parents are reporting that their children are already less physically fit. On top of this, more than 17,000 jobs have been lost in the sector over the past 2 years. We are grateful for the support of government, federal, provincial, and territorial to help provide relief to the situation. However, it's clear that ongoing government support for the recovery remains important to the long-term viability of this sector and its ability to serve Canadians. Today, my comments will focus on two elements that we believe should be prioritized by the government as we move forward: the community level of sport and equity in sport. I will share a few highlights of some reports that have been shared with the clerk. Canadian Tire Jumpstart Charities State of Sport Report, released in March 2021, indicated that 3 in 10 community sport organizations were temporarily or indefinitely closed. Already a third were bankrupt or approaching bankruptcy. And those that were not yet permanently closed were fearful that that may be the outcome for them. These findings really highlight the acute challenge faced by community sport and the potentially long-lasting effects of the pandemic on the sector overall. The underlying challenges are multiple and complex, including financial shocks, revenues plummeted and costs simultaneously went up, disruptions in access to facilities, a loss of volunteer coaches at all levels, loss of staff, as mentioned, and loss of participants. Our own research shows that 1 in 4 girls are considering not returning to sport as it resumes. This loss of capacity to deliver sport in Canada will impact Canadian kids and their families from coast to coast to coast, and kids from underrepresented communities will lose the most. With scarcity comes fewer opportunities to play and rising costs to participate, and with it, some very serious equity questions. Who gets priority for the spots remaining, whether it's access to ice time or access to a team? And are we comfortable with more and more kids being left out because their families cannot afford the fees? Every child in Canada should have an opportunity to play quality sport. But unless we prioritize equity in the recovery, the risk is high that the kids who could benefit most from sport are left on the sidelines. With that, we have 2 recommendations to continue the support for the sports sector to bridge from relief to recovery and beyond. That the Government of Canada strengthen and expand mechanisms for providing funding to community sport now and into the future. The Community Sport for All funding announced in Budget 2021 is an excellent start, but it cannot be the end. Community sport serves the most Canadians and creates the greatest public good, yet it has the least access to government dollars. If community sport isn't strong and sustainable, the system above it starts to crumble. Recovery funding should be for operations and infrastructure, not only for programs. And a sustainable mechanism for directing government funds to community sport should be established as an outcome of this. Second, that the Government of Canada make equity a core strategy and criteria for all investments in sport by the federal government. Directing more funding to community sport will contribute to alleviating the COVID-induced inequities, but will not go far enough. Sport organizations typically lack the necessary know-how to address inequity and to expand inclusion in their policies, programs, and operations. To that end, we would like to see more targeted funding for sport organizations led by and directly serving underrepresented Canadians, as well as ongoing investments in capacity building for mainstream sport organizations.
35 seconds, sorry.
To increase their understanding and competency for inclusion. Addressing these 2 points will be essential to the recovery and the long-term viability of the sports system to serve Canadians inclusively and well. Thank you for your time and consideration today. And of course, go Team Canada.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And we now move on to Conseil Québécois du Théâtre. I think that is Barbara Canatoni Diabo.
Nope, it's me.
Oh, it's
Rachel
you.
Morse.
Sorry, Rachel Morse.
Hi.
Sorry, Rachel.
Je vous remercie de cette invitation.
Thank you for the invitation to appear before you today. Today I'm speaking as co-chair of the Conseil Québécois du Théâtre. It's a non-profit organization that brings together and represents Quebec's professional theatre practitioners and theatre organizations to promote the influence of theatre arts in all their diversity. Over the past 2 years, we have supported our community through this historic crisis to provide the best possible support to an already fragile sector. We were ill-equipped to face the storm we found ourselves in, and as we begin our recovery, everyone is exhausted, psychologically shaken, and fragile. In recent days, Quebec's government announced that theatres would reopen at full capacity as of February 28th. We hope that this marks the beginning of the end of the crisis, but it does seem inevitable that we will have to cope with some difficulties for years to come. Many challenges are ahead, affecting many different areas of arts practice, and we hope that dialogue with government will continue. This fifth wave has been a real blow to professionals who thought they could finally start thinking about the future. This simply exacerbated a feeling that has become permanent among artists, that their profession is hanging by a thread. This is why I would like to tell this committee that they need to see recovery as a rebuilding. We need to use the lessons of this pandemic to make sure that arts and culture enjoy a balanced ecosystem. These changes are impossible without the cooperation and understanding of decision makers. Since the beginning of the pandemic, a significant amount of public support has been provided through agencies and institutions. We applaud the federal emergency support programs for individuals, specifically the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. But for some, it will be extremely difficult to climb back up the slope. These are artists, creators, artisans who are the foundation of the creative chains, who've had their shows cancelled multiple times, suffered from tremendous unpredictability, and those who have not even had a chance to really begin. I encourage members of this committee to increase funding to the Canada Council for the Arts so that individual and emerging artists can receive more support. If we wish to retain the rich talents of our creators and professionals, they will need healthy and competitive working conditions. We also welcome consultations on reforms to the EI program, which accounts for the realities of self-employed workers in the cultural sector. Representatives and associations have been sounding the alarm for years. We are relieved to note that the pandemic, by exacerbating the urgency of these systemic problems, has facilitated some adjustments. I hope that members of this committee will continue to monitor the issue closely so that changes can be implemented as quickly as possible. We hope that audiences will quickly resume the habit of going to the theatre. Presenters will need to be supported in their reopening plans because they know how to reach audiences. After months without funding, taking risks can be terrifying. Repeated cancellation and the absence of broadcast for months have left a vacuum. I must stress, therefore, to committee members that it's crucial to develop alternative modes of presentation while providing more support to teams. In brief, we need to support individual artistic careers sustainably by allowing artists to have support through Canada Council programs and by recognizing their work status under the Employment Insurance Program. We must also support dissemination by allowing presenters to assume more risks than ever before. We must also support dissemination by allowing presenters to assume more risk than ever before, by putting in place initiatives to stimulate audience return and development. I would like to thank you for giving me this opportunity to testify before this committee, and I hope that the concerns and solutions we are presenting will be reflected in your recommendations. On behalf of the Conseil québécois du théâtre, I sincerely hope that the next or upcoming government programs and support will ensure sustainable recovery.
Thank you very much, Ms. Morse. And I am now going to Indigenous Performing Arts Alliance with Barbara Canatoni Daibo. Ms. Daibo.
Madam Chair, Madam Clerk, Sego, Ganiratduni Ujats, Ganyagehaga, Niwagyanagera Saroda, Ganawagi Nidiwagenu, Danu Jojagi Nulangitiru. Hello, my name is Barbara Ganiratduni Daibo. I am from the Ganyagehaga Nation or Mohawk Nation of Ganawagi, and I now live in Montreal. I am here representing the Indigenous Performing Arts Alliance, or IPA. We are a national, multifaceted, not-for-profit organization who works with Indigenous performing artists, art organizations, and our allies. Canadian heritage. What does the word heritage mean to you, members of the committee? For us, it means tens of thousands of years on this land. Our evolution, our people, our relationships with the land, our ancestors, our languages, our traditions, our resilience, our songs, our carvings, our stories, our dances, our art, existing for millennia. But as you know, the challenges of keeping this alive and being supported as artists started long before COVID. I believe it is important to keep this in mind while I discuss COVID impact on our community in order to truly understand our fear of being forgotten once again. In spring of 2021, we at IPA, with the help of Ingenuity Consulting Group Incorporated, set out to undertake a study of the impacts of COVID-19 has had on Indigenous artists on a national scale. The following information is based on this study, other studies, as well as my own observations of being part of the Indigenous arts community for years. Many of our artists echoed the same challenges as non-Indigenous artists voice. For example, lack of work, financial struggles, depression, feeling unsafe, general insecurity, and feeling isolated. Some additional challenges were the loss of connection to community and culture, less support, resources, and opportunities available in more isolated Indigenous communities, misunderstandings or ignorance of our art and culture that weakens support for us, difficulty living and navigating in a colonial system, and fear of being forgotten. Let me elaborate on some of these points. 1, financial struggles. Only 29% of our respondents said they had personally accessed government or program level support. Many recipients also found that government support insufficient, noting that it was not enough for people to thrive on. And it is important to note that our financial baseline was already challenged in many ways. In a study done by Canada Council for the Arts, it was found that the Indigenous artists earned 68 cents on the dollar compared to non-Indigenous artists. 2, loss of connection to community and culture. Some Indigenous artists shared how their culture felt threatened, and it was challenging to continue to build relationships, practice tradition, and maintain cultural connections. For many of us, community is the center of well-being. It influences our art on many levels. The ability to travel and gather had a huge impact on many Indigenous artists on different levels than perhaps the rest of the mainstream population. 3, misunderstandings or ignorance of our art and culture that weaken support for us. We must be very aware of not falling into a one-size-fits-all artist support model through COVID and beyond. This system created challenges around maintaining a unique Indigenous identity when producing art to the mainstream world. 4, less support, resources, opportunities available in more isolated Indigenous communities. Lack of spaces, jobs, and even basic technologies such as high-speed internet created challenges to Indigenous artists that made them unable, for example, to transfer work virtually. Please remember that many Indigenous communities in regular times have less access to health services, adequate housing, and clean running water. COVID exacerbated these problems. How can our artists flourish in this? In conclusion, as many of you are aware, to help our artists grow, create, feel safe, have equal space in society, the problems go beyond COVID. But if today we are focusing mainly on COVID's effect on the arts, please remember this. For Indigenous artists, you must take the time and care needed to keep us safe, to keep us creating and to listen. Indigenous arts are an essential part of heritage on this land that we now call Canada. Take actions that will assure that we are not left behind or forgotten. For our artists, this is more than just loss of job. It is loss of identity and culture, which has already been so precarious for the last 500 years. Don't let COVID erase what little ground we have gained over the last decade. While much damage has resulted from the pandemic, I hope that we can use this as an opportunity to reflect on the system that is not working, devise a better way, take real actions to make it sure, and to assure that care and support is equally available to all of us. These changes can be better for all of Canada. Nyawagoa, thank you.
Thank you very much. And the final witness for today is Special Olympics Canada, Sharon Bollenbach.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And excuse me, I'm kind of fighting Mother Nature's spotlight here, but great to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to the committee. I am Sharon Bollenbach, and I'm the CEO at Special Olympics Canada. Special Olympics Canada is a national multi-sport organization providing year-round community sport training and competition opportunities for athletes with an intellectual disability. Working within a collaborative federated governance model, we have 12 provincial territorial chapters, and each day of the week in communities large and small through grassroots sport programs and competitions, we provide athletes with an intellectual disability the opportunity to experience the transformative power and joy of sport. The impacts and isolation caused by COVID-19 has been exceptionally difficult for our community. And today I really appreciate the opportunity to summarize several of those key areas of impact on Special Olympics across Canada. The first is athlete registration. On a trajectory of growth prior to COVID-19, we have experienced a 49% decrease in athlete registration. For both physical and mental well-being of our athletes, we aim and hope to get them back when it is safe to restart our programs and activities. Second is volunteer registration. Similarly to our athletes, we have a 39% decrease in volunteer registration. Our programs are run by our volunteers. They are our coaches, our administrators. They are really the ones that do and drive our work. Volunteer re-engagement, recruitment, and training will be essential to our recovery. Grassroots program delivery. Prior to COVID-19, we were offering 6,000 grassroots sport programs in 340 communities. These sport programs are the heart of who we are. All were suspended at one point during COVID. Some are starting to come back within specific restrictions and protocols. Access to facilities like schools and recreation facilities are proving to be challenging and costly. Competitions and national games. All competitions at the local and provincial territorial levels and our national games have been canceled. With no training and no pathway to compete and qualify, we as an organization prioritize fiscal and human resources on getting grassroots programs back up and running. Our aim is to return to sport, to return to competition when safe to do so, and our athletes can adequately train in preparation. Technology. The pandemic has certainly highlighted where we have gaps in technology, and now more than ever, the need to create and deliver platforms that are national in scope and can digitize our movement is very important. While most funding agreements prioritize program delivery versus infrastructure, there is heightened need for us to invest in technology that keeps us connected and working more efficiently. Mental health, as all of us have experienced as Canadians during COVID-19, and while our chapters have done a really great job of offering virtual programs and activities to keep athletes connected and active during the pandemic, the abrupt stop and continuing absence to daily routines, programs, and in-person contact has severely impacted the mental health of our athletes, putting a further strain on their families. And finally, financial. The financial impact of COVID-19 has been significant and will be a long-term recovery. Pre-COVID, in our 2019 to 20 fiscal, pan-Canadian revenue was 40 million. In 2021, our fiscal year, we had a 30% decrease in revenue and are forecasting the same for our 21-22 fiscal year. Most impacted has been our local fundraising. We have tapped into the Sport Canada Recovery Fund in 2021, and many chapters have benefited from employee salary, federal government employee salary benefits. And we will be tapping into the newly launched funding through Sport Canada. We've had a tough go of it, but our aim and our priority is to recover, rebuild, and reignite our movement.
Thank you very much. Very interesting presentations, everyone. I've heard some things today that I hadn't heard from other businesses in the past. So you put new challenges on the table. Thank you. And now we're going to go to the question and answer session. Now hello? There was a feedback there. I don't know what happened. All right, so we're going to the first round of questions and answers. This is a 6-minute round. I just wanted to warn you that the 6 minutes include questions and answers, so that everybody's going to have to work well to be able to get as many questions as they can. And if you can keep your answers short so that you can get as many answers as you can. So the first round is for the Conservatives. Kevin Moore. Kevin, 6 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and welcome to the 6 groups that joined us here today. The Canadian Art Museum Directors Organization, CAMDO. Alexandra, when you look in the country, many arts and museum organizations in Canada are tired of the Ottawa precinct taking most of the money. Now, you've given a wide range of $300,000 to $55 million, but the animosity with many museums in this country that the precinct of Ottawa with their big museums gobble up most of the money. I'd like you to comment on that.
Thank you very much through the chair. It's a really interesting question. I come from the West. I lived and worked in Saskatoon for many, many years at what was then the Mendel Art Gallery. So I certainly understand the perception of Ottawa as the seat of where all the national institutions are, and that there is the perception that, that there are, the funding pots go towards there. As the Ottawa Art Gallery, we're a local regional art gallery. And so we've carved out our space to tell the story of Ottawa's municipal and regional perspective. And so, I think there's that perception out there. They're crown corporations, so they get kind of funded differently than the rest of us. Typically, art galleries and directors across Canada have sort of the trifecta of local government funding, provincial government funding, and then funding from the Canada Council or from Heritage. And so, I think we feel like those are solid programs. They just need better funding pots within them for us to access more funds, because let's face it, we're all struggling. But, I do think that the nationals sort of sit outside. Now where we might, sort of pick away at that a little bit is often corporations and patrons, perhaps potential donors, don't often see the distinction between local and the national institutions. And so that maybe is an area where we could encourage more sort of localized or regional support. So at that corporate and individual donor level.
No, thank you for that. Of course, the Mendel family, very synonymous in our city of Saskatoon, and now it's Ellen Ramey and the Ramey Modern Art Gallery. So I see where you're coming from, where individuals do pick up the slack of provincial, municipal, or even federal governments. I have a question for Ms. Bolenbach, Special Olympics. About a month ago or less, I had in my office Greg Donaldson, a Special Olympian in my city, Snowshoer, along with Faye Matt, the CEO of Special Olympics Saskatchewan. They're concerned with the federal funding because in 2021, they received, your organization, $3.8 million from the federal government. Right now, they estimate only $2 million coming forward in 2022. So their ask was, is $1.8 million the shortfall, or is this federal government going to fill the void of 2022 as they did in 2021? So you didn't talk about the funding, but yet I had Special Olympians in my office 3 weeks very concerned with this. So is that a concern with the Canadian Special Olympian?
Yes, it is actually. And we did have a what we call our Hill Day, where we met with over 150 members of parliament across the country. And you are correct. You met with some local folks in Saskatchewan, but across the country, we were speaking to members of parliament to talk about the gap in funding that we will have in some incremental funding that was awarded to us 4 years ago. And we are looking at a gap starting April 1st of 1.8 million. And so we have been speaking to MPs about getting that gap filled in our funding.
Luck with that? I mean, we're only 2 months away. And I know Greg was very depressed in our office talking about the opportunities that sport has given him, mentally and physically. A great snowshoer. His mom was on hand, plus Faye Mapp was there. So yes. Is there any hope on that aspect of getting that 1.8 million from the federal government?
Yeah, thank you for bringing it up. We certainly are, and I did have it in my notes and got short on time there, so I did have it included to speak to today. But we are hopeful. I mean, we've put the ask in. We've submitted written submission to the Standing Committee on Finance. As I've said, we've spoken to over 150 MPs who have said they are showing their sign of support for our ask. I know many of them wrote letters to the finance minister, to the Minister of Sport, and to the chair of the Standing Committee on Finance to support that ask. So we are very hopeful, and we feel that we've spread the word across the Hill of this need in finance, and we hope that MPs and that we will be showing up in the budget when it's presented.
It's not there, what happens? If it's not there,
36 seconds, Kevin.
Thank you. If it's not there, the 1.8 million, what happens to your organization?
We will have cuts in funding. We've already sort of created an alternate budget with the 1.8 not included. And it definitely will mean that we will be cutting programs and services that our organization provides for athletes with an intellectual disability.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that's it, Kevin. Now I'm going to go to the Liberal for 6 minutes. Lisa Hefner. 6 minutes, Lisa.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and I want to thank all of the witnesses for their time and their opening statements today. And I'd like to focus my questions on Shelley Faulkner from the Art Gallery of Hamilton. And first off, just thank you for the good work you do. The Art Gallery is a key institution in our city. I know that my son, when he visited the Art Gallery, it was one of his favorite and most lasting memories of elementary school. And for me, I think the last time I was there was for the exhibit to celebrate the life of Millie, one of our iconic fashion designers. And I don't think that that exhibit could have happened anywhere else. So it was really important. And I've heard anecdotally that people have been clamoring to get into the Art Gallery when you have been open. So I think that's my first question for you, Shelley. Do you feel that the Art Gallery will have to work to overcome people's reluctance to be in crowds again? Or do you feel that there's a pent-up demand and you'll have lots of people coming to visit the Art Gallery when they can?
Thank you, Lisa, for the shout out and the question. It's a great question. We opened our doors this past weekend with our new exhibitions. I'd like to point out that our Margaret Watkins exhibition, like a lot of things right now, are tied up with the supply chain issues. Half the exhibition is in crates in Istanbul that didn't get on the plane. So it's missing one of our exhibitions in our history. That's never happened before. But we did open this past weekend with most of our new exhibitions, and there was a lineup outside the door. That doesn't always happen. So I think that answers part of your question. We have noticed, though, with the last few reopenings, because we all know we've been in a few lockdowns, that our younger audiences are much more ready to come back. We find, and my colleagues can jump in with their comments on this, we do find it more challenging for older audiences. They're quite reluctant to be in crowds. And in fact, what we've been doing with quite a few of them is reaching out directly and offering to bring them in when the galleries close to the public, so they can feel secure. So it seems to be, and I'm not saying for all, but it's certainly the younger demographic is more willing to go. Our older audience is far more reluctant.
Really interesting observations. Thank you. In your opening statement, you talked about aging infrastructure. And I don't know how old the building, the art gallery is in, but I know it's at least several decades old. And I'm sure that you have challenges to deal with. At Canadian Heritage, there's a relatively new fund called the Cultural Spaces Fund. So this is grants and contributions for construction and renovation projects, specialized equipment purchases, feasibility studies for professional nonprofit arts and heritage infrastructure projects. So I'm wondering if you're aware of this fund. If this is something that would help you address some of those aging infrastructure projects.
Yes, and thank you for bringing up Cultural Spaces. They've been dear friends to us. They funded our feasibility study. You're well aware of the aging infrastructure in downtown Hamilton and the new revitalization of those buildings that's about to occur by a group of developers that will be taking over those buildings from the city. We are one of those buildings. However, we were not included in the city's plans to be taken over. It's an odd situation to be in. It's a city-owned building with aging infrastructure. And I'd say the gallery to date has put in millions to keep the gallery going as a public institution. So Cultural Spaces has started to assist us with the very, very extensive feasibility study that we have completed now and submitted. We will be going back into Cultural Spaces for support. But as you know, these are very expensive projects. And I would say that one of my points by raising the infrastructure issue is in Ontario alone.
En Ontario, pour les espaces culturels, le plafond est de 10 à 15 millions.
Like ours.
Excuse me 1 second, please. There is an echo of the interpreter, or someone is speaking. So please make sure that your mics are all muted. They seem to be. So I don't know where that's coming from, but carry on, Shelley. I'll give you the extra time I just took from you.
Thank you. Thank you. So my point is this program has been in place for some years now. And I think that given the problems that we're having across the country with our aging infrastructure, I think like the operating funds, and I was trying to bring up the issue of both operating and infrastructure, I think it needs to be looked at. I think the fund needs to be a fund that is bigger if we're going to do anything to reinforce or to renovate the aging infrastructure that we have, which are holding collections worth billions of dollars when you bring them all together. So really, really important assets.
Thank you for that. You also mentioned in your opening statement that the Art Gallery of Hamilton was one of the first to go online and start offering programming. Can you reflect on how maybe the pandemic has changed the way museums may operate in the future? Do you expect that digital programming will continue? Do you have any advice on that?
1 minute?
Yeah, I'll be very quick. I think it was largely due to our size. As a mid-size institution, I think it's easier to be a little more nimble. But I think the problem we have is funds were released for a lot of strategy. We need infrastructure. Most of us do not have the technology nor the skilled employees to be able to run our institutions like a television studio, which is what I feel like I've become this past year. So we did move quickly. We were fortunate, but I know that we and others are struggling because we simply don't have those kinds of funds built into our operating.
If I have a couple seconds left,
Lisa,
I'll just...
No, you don't have any seconds left. Thank you so much. I'm sorry. But now we get to the next person. This is from the Bloc Québécois, Monsieur Martin Champoux. 6 minutes, Martin.
You have 6 minutes, Mr. Champoux.
Est-ce que vous m'entendez?
Can you hear me now? Better? Yes. Sorry. I'll start again. First of all, thank you to all witnesses for being here today. Once again, it's very instructive and interesting to hear you. My first question is for Ms. Morse of the Conseil québécois du théâtre. In recent weeks, during the study we're working on, we have spoken a lot about reopening the cultural sector. We heard from the Union des Artistes, who were talking about a kind of seduction campaign that we would need to carry out to lure back voters. Typical theater patrons are very faithful audiences, generally speaking. They're people who really love theater. Do you believe it's going to be a very significant challenge once restrictions are lifted to reconquer their hearts and reawaken their loyalty? Well, reconquer their hearts, I don't think that'll be a problem. I think their hearts will remain ours. But older patrons, as our colleague was saying, are more concerned because what we've been hearing for 2 years now is that close contact is dangerous. So if you're older and if you're more at risk, that group of that audience group is going to be rather more concerned. So it'll take time to rebuild their confidence. And there are also many people who are cultural workers and who are really seeing their working conditions and very fragile. Salaries have always been low, and the further we went into the pandemic, the more difficult it was to keep employees and keep artists paid. So people who are exhausted and don't have the money are not going to go to the theater. Thank you. I think it's absolutely wonderful how you managed to move from the first question into my second. You were talking about the fragile condition, the precarious nature of jobs in the arts and culture industry, be it stage technicians and others. We had spoken of reviewing the legislation on the status of the artist in the province, and also look at EI, the Employment Insurance Program, because a lot of people in the arts are working intermittently. Could you please tell us, in terms we can understand, what the advantage would be for the independent workers and for the industry to give them that kind of safety net, EI? Well, it would make it possible for them it would give them continuity, because in any trade, living the way artists do would be a monumental challenge. The assistance that was provided and which we greatly appreciate has been so useful. For example, increasing operating funds for organizations, that's tremendously helpful. But people who cannot access operational funding are falling between the cracks and don't seem to be able to pick themselves up. I was talking about succession and diversity, the next generation of artists. Emerging artists have tremendous difficulty in getting access to funding and support. We are going to undertake a significant promotion campaign. I know I'm jumping from one topic to another, but we need, yes, to restore the confidence of audiences. But in spite of all the assistance provided, we've seen that things like resiliency funding is going through departments. What we've done to support artists and what we can do in the future remains an important question. The Artists Fund is one solution. Reform to employment insurance, helpful, yes. But programs to support individual artists have yet to be created, and I do think that's the best way of supporting them. Do you think that the kind of disengagement that we're seeing, that kind of disengagement is happening because artists are fed up, because every time there is a wave, a new wave, they have to just basically keep holding their hand out to beg? Yes, well, that's exactly what they've had to do. And that exhaustion is all the worse when you don't have any way of getting out of it.
Excuse me, clerk, there is a feedback that is making it difficult. It sounds like we're either listening to the interpreter or there is something in Ms. Morse's room where there's feedback. I don't know, but I am hearing someone else speaking rapidly.
Oh.
It's okay, Ms. Morse, I will give you the time to finish.
Okay. Oui, donc en fait.
Yes, so it's that exhaustion will simply be added to the fact that conditions will never be optimal. But what we would like is to be more competitive and to have a fresh injection of funding for operating funds, particularly for individual artists through a new artist funding program. Yes, that was a recommendation that we made during a previous study on this subject to ensure that the assistance provided by the government gets to the end of the line to the actual artists who don't have much access to the funding. Yes, thank you. Ms. Morse will have an opportunity to come back to this during our study on the status of artists.
Cool.
Thank you, Martin. I think, though, that it's when Ms. Morse is speaking that I'm getting this rapid, somebody speaking very rapidly. So could maybe the technicians look at her in the interim to see if there's something going on in her little room, and maybe with the feedback from her hearing or whatever, but I can definitely hear it. It's very clear, actually. And it only happens when she is speaking. So thank you. Thank you very much, Martin. I'm going to move forward now to the New Democratic Party. Mr. Peter Julian. Peter, 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thanks so much for our witnesses. We know that this is difficult times during the pandemic, and so we thank you for your service, and we hope that you and your family and loved ones are staying safe and healthy during this pandemic. I wanted to start by asking Ms. Sandmeyer-Graves, to what extent there continues to be a discrimination against funding in women's sports? What is the per capita funding for women's sports in Canada today compared to men's sports?
Oh, that is an excellent question, and I appreciate it very much. Frankly, a difficult thing to assess. Sport is a very big, diverse sector with everybody sort of working autonomously, and so we don't always get those numbers rounded up. What we do know is, so some proxies, if you will, is that when we look, for instance, at sponsorship of women athletes and women's sports compared to male athletes, women are receiving approximately only 4% of sponsorship dollars. And so that reflects a major infusion of private dollars into the system.
So 4% for women's, 96% for men's sports?
Yes, it's a very, very substantial gap when it comes to private sector funding into sports. Within government, there have certainly been efforts to improve the amount of finances or resources flowing to women's sports. Those decisions ultimately happen within every organization. But for instance, the federal government in 2018, as part of Budget 2018, announced $30 million of support for gender equity with the goal of achieving gender equality in all levels of sport by 2035. Our view is that that was an excellent start, but certainly not enough to correct the historical imbalances in investment and support throughout the sports system. And so we are currently advocating for follow-on funding to support continued efforts and towards gender equity in the sports system.
Thank you. And thank you for those figures. It's stunning to me that in 2022, we're still talking about women's sports getting 4% of the sponsorship dollars. That it stuns me. After all the success of women team sports and our women athletes. That's very surprising. So thank you for that. I've got a lot of questions, so I'll move on to Ms. Bolenbach about the Special Olympics. I'm a strong supporter and sponsor local Special Olympians. I'd like to know, you talked about the contingency budget, where if you don't receive the money that is absolutely essential to your operations, and you talked about canceling some programs. I'd be interested in knowing just to what extent that will have an impact on Special Olympians.
Now, what we tried to do so that there weren't any programs that would be completely 100% cut is we, for lack of a better term, sort of shaved some off the top of a number of different programs in that 1.8 million. So we are still getting funding via Sport Canada. That 1.8 was incremental funding awarded to us 4 years ago. It increased each year, and this particular year we're at 3.8, and starting in April that will go down. That incremental funding will go down to 2 million. So that's where we get to that gap of 1.8 million. So what we'd be looking at is taking a little bit off of a number of programs that we do. So direct, as I spoke to the direct grassroots delivery of programs, a little bit would come off of volunteers, volunteer development, a bit off competition. So there are a number of areas that would be impacted, and we would just have to sort of pull back on some of those funds going out to our provincial territorial chapters, where that money really hits at the grassroots community level.
Thank you very much for that. And because I've got lots of questions, I'll move on to Ms. Badzek and Ms. Falconer. When we talk about our arts museum sector, what are the impacts of not receiving the supports that are so vital across the country? Do you anticipate a potentially closure of some of our arts museums? What do you see as the consequences?
1:15.
Shall I start, Shelley? And you can...
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you. No, absolutely. I mean, I think we can say safely without cues and without the infused amounts that we've received from Canada Council, as well as some provincial funding bodies, we most likely would see significant closures of art galleries and art museums across the country. I can say for ourselves that those two supports from both the Canada Council and through the CUES program kept us going. When we lost over $1 million in our revenue generating units during this period of time, it was essential and we need it to continue. Shelley.
Yeah, I'd just like to add, and it relates to a question that was asked earlier about the funding, and I hope I get this in time. It's a little complicated. Different institution, it was asked about Ottawa art galleries. Different funding models exist for different institutions. Federal, provincial, and municipal galleries that receive very extensive base funding feel the impact less, for example, than an institution like the Art Gallery of Hamilton or like Jean-Françoise in Joliette, where we are at 17% of base funding. So we have to make up all the rest in those earned revenues and donations. So I would say for those of us in the positions like we're in, it means not only structural deficits, but perhaps closures. I think for the more heavily funded government organizations with base funding, they will probably fare better. But it's certainly, we're not all created equal. I think that's the main point. And there is a difference between government-based funding and project funding, which are two very different things. One is applied and one is a given.
Ms. Falconer, maybe you can round that up when you get another question, plonk that in. Thank you very much. We're going to go to the second round now. And the second round is for 5 minutes. And it begins with Rachel Thomas for the Conservative Party. 5 minutes, Ms. Thomas.
Thank you. Sure. My first question is going to go to Canadian Women in Sport, Ms. Sandmeyer-Graves. I'm just wondering if you can talk a little bit about, you said, you want to move from relief to recovery and beyond, and you talked about the importance of sport and how it creates public good. Perhaps you can expand on how it creates public good.
Thank you for the question. So I think sport is probably best known for its positive physical benefits and mental health benefits. Sport, of course, if we look at it through a gender perspective, is also a place where girls and women first get to establish their leadership, which they have shown through research has translated into greater educational attainment and even greater career attainment. From a newcomer perspective, sport has shown to be a fantastic way for newcomers to settle and integrate into communities. It is in and itself a large cultural experience in our country, and people being able to access it is key. Sport is also used as a vehicle for development in a lot of respects. We know that it is an attractive pursuit for young people to be involved in, and it becomes a platform for so many life skills development and career skills development and other aspects that can really support them well beyond the field of play. It is an economic driver in many communities, a source of great employment, and more.
Perfect. And as we come back into our pursuits of normality in this country, as we recover from the pandemic and look to what you called beyond, would you say that, those of us who are in places of leadership have a role to play in terms of the language that we use? Now, I know that there is definitely a role to play in terms of legislation and, of course, in terms of funding models. I understand that. But so much of the language that we use as leaders does, in fact, impact society, and it either normalizes or stigmatizes certain activity. What is our role to play in terms of bringing sport back to a place of normal engagement?
I think it's a really interesting question in the sense that, like has been described by so many of the witnesses today, there's been a real stop-start, and frankly, across provincial and territorial jurisdictions, there's been very different rules and very different expectations of what it means to engage and how that engagement will be supported in sport as well as in other places. And what we know is that as much as sport has not been available because the organizations weren't providing it, people have also been opting out of sport because they themselves didn't feel comfortable putting themselves into those scenarios. And in fact, one of the things that we're very concerned about is there is a high dropout rate of youth from sport during adolescent years, both girls and boys, but girls certainly at higher rates. And so there's a generation of kids who now are going through COVID where this is maybe the thing that's forced them out and they won't come back again. And that represents a loss of opportunity for well-being throughout their lives. So I would say that to your question about how we should be thinking as leaders about framing the recovery and coming back. I think what we want to be encouraging people to be active. We want to be encouraging people to re-engage and resume their participation. And as much as possible, I think that the sports system has done a wonderful job of responding to the restrictions and to adapting and ensuring things are safe. And we now need to inspire confidence in people to return.
1 minute.
No, that's excellent. And to Special Olympics, Ms. Sharon Bullenbach, I have the same question for you. How do we help athletes come back and fully engage?
Yeah, thank you for asking. And I'll sort of add on to what Allison said, because I certainly agree with that. I think that, as leaders, we can communicate that coming back, that re-engaging with community, because it's something that sport does so well, is it creates and builds community. I know from a Special Olympics perspective, athletes with an intellectual disability feel part of community by being involved in our organization. And they gain confidence on the field of play and other skills, as Allison mentioned, that extend far beyond sport. So I think we can be speaking about, coming back to community and what that looks like related to sport that then has physical health benefits and mental health benefits and all of those things that create that sort of unique kind of transformative, we always use that term, but it's true, that transformative power of sport.
Thank you, Ms. Bullenbach. You can elaborate on the next question. Thank you. Then I go to, for the Liberals, Tim Lewis. Tim, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to all of the witnesses. This has been very, very informative, and I appreciate it. I'd like to start by directing my questions to Ms. Diabo. Something very impactful that you said that I took notes here, that, you know, in Indigenous communities, there's a different definition of heritage, and theirs has existed for millennia. That was a very impactful statement. And what we're hoping to do here is learn from this pandemic experience. The time-limited emergency responses that we provided to First Nations, Inuit, Métis, what can we learn from them? I know that I looked at your website, and you had ideas and programs like the Tech Bundle program, which sounds amazing, which is going to help artists give the tools they need to digitally share their work, record live stream video, record music, put on shows. How can we take ideas like the Tech Bundle program or micro innovation grants that support this digital creation? How can we use the supports now as a move ahead forward and continue to provide that support?
Thank you. Yes, the Tech Bundles was really, really proud of that baby, so to say, that we managed to get, I believe it's about 20 Tech Bundles that will go to various communities across Canada, to Indigenous organizations that will allow Indigenous artists to use it, to be able to transform their work into more virtual, because like I mentioned, many, northern communities and stuff like that, they, even internet is a challenge. So even that we have to figure out a little bit more. But how, I always come back to, it's really not a one size fits all. While our artists do have the same challenges as every other artists that my peers here have mentioned, I think it's important to have a focus, to make sure that there is perhaps an extra focus on Indigenous community and arts, because as we know, we have to build trust through reconciliation. So we're on that journey now to build trust with each other. For example, when Canada Council for the Arts, when CALC, I live in Conseil des Arts de l'État, Quebec, when I live in Quebec, that they started Indigenous programs specifically for Indigenous artists within their larger programs. More artists would apply. So I feel like, for example, a committee such as today, I think it's really important to have that kind of extra, to have that extra time to build the relationship, continue building the relationship. Talk to us, Indigenous Performing Arts Alliance. We're national. We know what's going on. Take a meeting with us. These relationships are the only way that we're going to be able to really take the time to move forward together.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. 1 minute, 45 seconds.
I'm going to have to stop most of the questions I had. Building trust, building that relationship, that is so important. Can you explain the resilience of the Indigenous arts ecosystem and how we can strengthen those connections through dialogue, through art?
Yes, I mean, what I find, I get that a lot. I give a lot of talks to organizations about how to build relationships, and it really is relationship building with time. It's not like, hey, we have this, come in to our space and talk to us. It's like, no, we're going to go into the communities, as in you are going to go into the communities. You're going to build a relationship. You may take a language class. You may take a beading class. This is where the trust is being built on a personal level, and not just start a program and expect people to come. You have to be able to talk and communicate in a way that is trustful. So go out and learn, go out and meet some of the organizations and the people involved.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much. You got 30 seconds if you want to go with that, Kim.
Please, let us explain in 30 seconds or less, explain the importance of broadband internet and how that will help share your message.
Absolutely. There's some places where where I've been, for example, they don't even have electricity or cell service. But internet, how can we be competitive? How can we even start to involve ourselves in this transformation that so many people are going virtually now, when so many communities can't even have that access. It would be so important to have that access and to be able to bring it and at least have that competitive edge as everyone else does. So yes, it's very important.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And I'm good questions there, Mr. Lewis. Mr. Shampoo, for 2.5 minutes.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question goes to Mr. Bellil or his colleague from the Museum Association. I'd like to ask you, are the rules rather strict for certifying a museum? In Drummondville, where I am, there's a beautiful museum, the National Photography Museum, which doesn't have a museum certification, which could possibly give it better access to assistance. Is this an isolated case? Do you have others in mind? And what is your position on this? Alexandra, may I go ahead? So the certification you're referring to in Quebec is something that's managed by the Quebec Ministry of Culture. It's not something very difficult, but it does involve a whole lot of red tape. And one thing that we've learned about this certification, which is important for the post-COVID recovery, is that it was invented by civil servants who work in Quebec City and who are not in the field. And they spoke to museum directors, or they didn't speak to directors in order to get more information, and they could have done that through our association, CAMDO, and if they had spoken to museum directors, they might have realized that their basic concept was perhaps lacking in certain areas. Our association is countrywide. We are individuals, and we are a great partner to help facilitate exchanges between civil servants and the people who will be affected by their decisions. Thank you for that, Mr. Bellil. I'd now like to speak to Ms. Sandmeyer-Graves. Earlier on, Ms. Sandmeyer-Graves, you talked about a ratio which floored me about funding for women's sport, amateur women's sport. You said 4%. Is that ratio representative of participation rate between boys and girls? It seems completely unfair.
Certainly echo your point about unfairness. And I think what we're dealing with is historical bias towards men's sport. And in fact, women have had to fight many battles for recognition and respect and support for their participation in sport as well. Certainly, we're encouraged by the fact that increasingly it is becoming the norm that people believe that women should be supported in sport, and sport leaders are increasingly committed to pursuing gender equity. But there's a long history of men's sport being funded substantially in comparison to women's sport, and we are in catch-up mode. We're in catch-up mode financially. We're in catch-up mode in terms of the competency of delivering sport that's effective for women and girls. And it's a big capacity issue for the sports system. We're optimistic. We're seeing signs of progress. The investment from the federal government has certainly been helpful, but it is a long game, not a short game.
Un gros merci pour ces réponses.
Thank you for those answers. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Martin. And now I'm going to go to Peter Julian for 2.5 minutes. Peter?
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I have questions for Ms. Morse. Ms. Morse, thank you for your work. And there are two things that I am intrigued by. I have two questions. We know that there are difficulties, challenges that the various sectors are experiencing. But are there models, approaches used in other countries that might be worthwhile for Canada, for artists here? And second question, we, the NDP, have put the question of a guaranteed basic income. And the idea would be to allow artists to continue to exercise their craft without being worried about being able to pay the rent. With a basic income, they would be in better economic security. So what are the possibilities here, and what do you think of the idea of a guaranteed minimum income? Well, there are several examples elsewhere in the world, even recent ones. For example, in Scotland, and there's also the French example that is excellent with a minimum wage. Your two questions kind of cross over one into the other. So minimum wage goes hand in hand with employment insurance with that issue, given the instability, the very changing nature of artists' work. This would provide some security, and as you were saying, it would help not have to worry about how you're going to pay the rent. If you can put that aside, then you can devote your energy to creating works that are worthwhile, that are interesting. So, yes, the idea is to support artists, not just for their projects, their artistic endeavors, as is the case today, but also to allow them to have a certain minimum level of income to be able to survive. Thank you very much.
Seconds, Peter. Thank you. You want to go with 13 or you want to leave?
Well, no, I'm always willing to ask a question. And what do you think of the concept of a guaranteed livable basic income for artists, including Indigenous artists?
You have 2 seconds, Ms. Morse. I guess that's a yes
No,
or no answer.
It was Ms. Keneratoni.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Absolutely. That sounds wonderful because as an artist myself, I realize that, the pressure to produce and to sell work or to, for even my theater colleagues, if they have to have that pressure, to like sell seats, make sure that the box office is always full. It is so important to have that time to breathe and create. And that is part of the artistic process. So absolutely a guaranteed income would be wonderful.
Thank you, Ms. Tybo. Now I'm going to move to Leslyn Lewis, Ms. Lewis, for 5 minutes for the Conservatives.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My first question is for Ms. Sandy Meyer-Graves. You had indicated that there are undersourced and under-resourced communities. I'm just wondering if you can explain why you stated that the cost of sports would increase or could increase to a point where there would be a negative impact on these under-resourced and underrepresented communities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so frankly, rising costs of sport it was a trend before COVID. I would say COVID has really exacerbated it. So in the sense that, for instance, the costs of within facilities of cleaning and the costs or the protocols of having fewer participants in the space due to greater spacing requirements, things like that, means that the cost of accessing that space has gone up. So that would be certainly one way that we're seeing that take place, one very substantial way that we're seeing that take place. Will those go away as restrictions start to go away at the provincial and territorial level? Perhaps a bit, but organizations are still struggling with a massive financial shortfall. And so we expect that fees will go up as they have fewer participants that they're drawing from, and they need to still cover their costs. So those same costs are going to be then spread across fewer participants. So there's a few different things coming into play there. Ultimately, the risk that we're seeing and that sport organizations are seeing themselves is that their ability to serve folks, particularly from lower income communities, will go down because they simply cannot afford to provide programming at an accessible cost.
Thank you. And that ties into my next question about equity. You stated that equity should be a criteria for funding. And I would like to know how you define equity and which groups do you think specifically, what are some of the groups that you say are underrepresented and really need to be considered in the equity profile?
Absolutely. Well, I think equity really recognizes that there are groups that have encountered historical disadvantages or who have been historically disadvantaged who have confronted many barriers to accessing what sport has to offer. And equity really recognizes that and seeks to address that, seeks to meet the specific needs of participants so that they can access and enjoy the benefits of sport equitably, equally with others. Within sport, there are many communities that have not been well served, and I think they really represent similar dynamics across Canada. In the absence, for instance, of Special Olympics Canada, and even with Special Olympics Canada, folks with intellectual disabilities and disabilities more broadly in our communities are being left out of sport. The Black community has historically not had sufficient access to sport. Indigenous participants absolutely are underrepresented in sport. I think women maybe represent the largest group, but there's such an intersectional component to that. It's not all women who are equally unable to access sport. Black women, Indigenous women, women with disabilities, LGBTQI2S. So sport has a long way to go, I think, to improve how it serves our communities. And unfortunately, I think the struggles that the sports system has encountered in COVID has set back their ability to prioritize this and to invest in it going forward, which is why we believe that targeted support that we know is going towards expanding opportunities for underrepresented communities through sport is an important approach for us to take.
Thank you. And my next question is for Ms. Sharon Bollenbach.
41 seconds.
Yes. Now, you mentioned that if you don't get funding, you'll have to make some cuts. And I just want to hear about some of the additional costs that the Special Olympians have, like equipment and chaperones that average athletes don't have.
Mm-hmm. Great question. And, many of our athletes are in a low socioeconomic status as individuals with an intellectual disability. And so we offer our programs at little to no cost, and no one is denied access to any of our Special Olympics programs because they can't afford it. So we as an organization are not, receiving the bulk of our income from, registration revenues. So we're the ones paying the facility rental, we're the ones buying equipment. And as, my colleague Allison mentioned, things we are seeing that facility rentals are higher post-COVID, and equipment costs are higher, and all of those things that we're experiencing.
Can you wrap up, please, Ms. Bollenbach? And maybe you can get a chance to answer it under Mr. Housefather or something. I have no idea.
Sure. All right.
But thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Lewis. Mr. Housefather, for the Liberals, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses. I really appreciate your contribution today. And Allison, our mutual friend Adam Ben-Couverton wanted to say hi. He's sorry he can't be with us right now. I wanted to highlight, we were just speaking in terms of Ms. Lewis's questions about equity deserving groups. And I wanted to just highlight the Community Sport for All initiative, which seeks to remove barriers and increase sports participation for these equity deserving groups, in particular Black, Indigenous, racialized, LGBTQ+, women, etc. And the funding actually, I believe the date to apply is April 4th, 2022. So I wanted to check with Ms. Standmeyer-Graves and Ms. Bollenbach, are organizations that you know about applying, and is Special Olympics going to apply? Allison, maybe you could go first, and then Sharon.
Sure. I think, this has been a program that's been highly anticipated within the sports system. And I think a lot of enthusiasm for the fact that it will be for community sport. It was a little bit unprecedented, to be honest, listening to our national sport organization counterparts talk about the importance of community sport and their concerns about how community sport had been negatively impacted, because they do see that certainly that has ripple effects throughout the system, all the way to, of course, our performance at the Olympics and the Paralympics. So very exciting. I think what is going to be interesting to watch is that the federal government does not have a lot of existing mechanisms for getting funding to community sport. Its purview has historically been high performance sports, so national teams. Sharon's and my organizations would be among some of the exceptions where we do work throughout the system. But getting money right to the communities is not something that we have a lot of experience within the sports system. It's a lot of money. It's a very short period of time. And so I think it'll be very interesting to see how this progresses and proceeds and how effective it is. And of course, very optimistic in that. And as I said in my comments, I hope that this is only just the beginning and that we do see, in fact, mechanisms federally for continuing to support community sport, because it is, I think, under-resourced from a government perspective. Sharon, curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so I feel the same way. And I can say that, we do have mechanisms to get down to our communities through Special Olympics. We work very closely with our provincial sport organizations, and they are directly involved in communities. And to answer your question, the applications just came out, I think last week or the week prior. And so my team and I are exploring it. We're working with our chapter counterparts to look at how Special Olympics could benefit from this new funding model.
Amazing. Just because I think a lot of times people aren't aware of programs that actually do exist. I'll highlight another one that I'm aware of is the Innovation Initiative, which aims to address the challenges of participation and retention of girls and women in sports, which I'm sure you're very familiar with, Allison. And I just think it's one of the things I just wanted to raise is a lot of times people don't know about these programs. We need to better communicate that they do exist, that they're out there so that people can actually apply. I have one last question before the chair will end my time. Allison,
you have
Title
1
IX,
minute, 35 seconds.
Perfect. I have plenty of time for me to ask and you to answer. One of the things that has been the most effective in the United States in terms of women's sports participation at the high school and college level has been Title IX, which, as a competitive athlete growing up, and even then on the national level, I saw in the United States the distinctions between how universities treated women's athletics versus what they did here because of that law. Is there something at the provincial or federal level that should be done that is similar to Title IX?
Absolutely. We're often very envious of our American counterparts with Title IX. I think what it did was, create a legal framework, but also just very clear expectations for equity within actually the broader educational space. And so it really applies to sport, which takes place in an educational context. Very, very clear expectations of that. I think there's a lot that we can learn also from the failures of Title IX. I mean, very few colleges and universities are in compliance right now. And Title IX has actually led to a collapse in women's coaches and a comparable rise in men's coaches' opportunities, which is really paradoxical. So I think that the clear expectations and accountability for meeting those expectations. And I just hope that we would do a better job of it than the US in the implementation and learn from their lessons over the last 40 years.
Thank you very much. Bang on. Okay, I think we've ended the sessions, and I wanted to thank the witnesses for coming and taking the time. I must say I was actually quite disturbed to find that the gap of 68 cents to the dollar for Indigenous performers is still that wide. And I was absolutely blown away to find this private funding at 4% versus 96% for women and versus men. I think, hopefully maybe Anthony might have an idea in the question he asked, and maybe we can talk about some of that stuff, because this is whatever. But what I heard repeatedly is that if you're going to be a resilient community, you need technology. And that is a really big piece. So I want to thank you again for taking your time. I want to wish you all, I don't know what you're doing this evening, but I want to wish you all a happy Valentine. Enjoy, be loved. You are loved, I'm sure, by everyone, even though you may not have a partner. But again, happy Valentine's, everyone. And I'm going to ask the witnesses to clear so that we can move into Ms. Thomas's motion. And we do have resources to take us to 5:45, but we must stop there. Thank you.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Yep.
I just wanted to say that I have to step out for a media interview, but I am being replaced with the extraordinary new member of Parliament for Nanaimo, Ladysmith, Lisa Marie Barrett, and she will carry her standard through the debate. So
we'll miss you, Pedro. Obviously. Bye. Okay.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
All right, have all the witnesses left, so we can now move in. Ms. Thomas, would you read your motion, please?
Sure. Thank you, Chair. Sure. I'm hoping that this won't take too long. Just looking to move my motion, which was put on notice, I guess at the beginning of this, last week. It was put on notice last week. It reads as follows: that pursuant to Standing Order 1082, the committee undertake a study on the harms caused to children, women, and men by the ease of access to and online viewing of illegal sexually explicit material, and the extent to which online access to illegal sexually explicit material contributes to the prevalence of violence against women and girls and sex trafficking in Canada. That the committee hear from organizations, victims, and law enforcement experts. That the committee hold a minimum of 4 meetings to that end. That the committee consider legal frameworks to prevent the harm caused by online access to illegal sexually explicit material, and that the committee report its findings and recommendations to the House. And of course, this motion is made available on the committee's website and has been sent out by the chair in both French and English. The reason I'm bringing this motion forward is because I believe that it's a topic that deserves consideration, and Heritage Committee seems the most appropriate place to do that, namely because it is actually in the Minister's in the Minister's mandate letter, which includes the mandate to combat serious forms of harmful online content to protect Canadians and hold social media platforms and other online services accountable for the content they host, which I hope you would agree with me should include anything having to do with using minors in a sexually explicit manner.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. I notice Mr. Champoux would like to weigh in on this.
Certainement, Madame la Présidente. En fait,
Yes, Madam Chair. I have a few questions for Ms. Thomas. There was perhaps a change in the spirit of the motion in the French version. Allow me to explain. When I read in French l'étude sur les méfaits que cause, etc., etc., a méfait in French is an act covered by the criminal code. And I think what we were trying to say was a study on the harms caused to children, women, and men. So there is a difference in the translation, a slight difference that does bring a different nuance of meaning. Perhaps at the same time, I could ask our legal advisor, studying the legal framework, consider the legal framework in the English version. Is it really within the ambit of the Canadian Heritage Committee to study a legal framework? Should not that rather be within the ambit of the Justice Committee? Perhaps a regulatory framework might be better. For example, the CRTC could enact regulations. Does Ms. Thomas really want us to look at the legal framework? And if so, we should ask our counsel whether this should rather be a motion to be considered by the Justice Committee.
Marion, Gabrielle, would you like to take that on?
Marion Ménard, Bibliothèque du Parlement. Je vous dirais, Monsieur Champ.
Marion Ménard, Library of Parliament. On the CRTC site, it says explicitly that the CRTC does not regulate the internet. That might change, but so far that is my answer, and that would be the CRTC's answer as well. But if I may, Madam Chair, on this point, Marion, I'd like to know whether the Canadian Heritage Committee can consider a legal framework, whether it is within our terms of reference. Can we do that? Is this something that doesn't need to be looked at by the Justice Committee? The mandate or the terms of reference or the scope of the Minister of Canadian Heritage or the Department of Canadian Heritage is very broad. I would ask the clerk whether she has anything to add on this.
The idea of the legislative framework, I would say that it's up to the chair to determine admissibility. As far as legislative frameworks are concerned, if the committee chooses to study it, then it's certainly something that they could study. The harms is in the mandate letter of the Minister of the Department of Canadian Heritage.
Thank you, Clerk. Ms. Hepner.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I just want to be clear on what exactly we're hoping to study with this motion. Maybe Ms. Thomas can elaborate a little bit more. I wasn't a part of this committee previously, but I do know there was a study that seems to be similar in intent, and I'm just wanting to make sure that we don't redo work that the committee's already done. So there was the protection of privacy and reputation on platforms such as Pornhub, which I believe that this committee studied in quite detail and made recommendations, and that's still pending. So I'm just looking for clarity, just to make sure that we're not covering ground that the committee's already covered before.
Ms. Thomas?
Sure, just a couple of comments. So Mr. Shampoo, I would gladly accept a friendly amendment with regards to the French version. Certainly there might be a misinterpretation there, and so I'm happy to fix that or amend that. In terms of the overall motion, I think the goal here is to look at the harm that is caused to those individuals who are underage, who are then having their photos or their videos uploaded online, which fits directly within the mandate letter of the Heritage Minister. Whereas the motion that you are referring to, I believe, Ms. Hepner, is one that was studied at Ethics. It was a very short study, and it focused on the privacy issue. So it didn't so much focus on the harms, it focused on the privacy. Again, this one would focus specifically on the harms, the online harms that are caused to these individuals who have their images or their videos uploaded and made available to the public. And so that being the focus, it does directly fit within the mandate letter of the Minister for Heritage.
Martin?
Je vais profiter de la main tendue pour...
I would then propose a friendly amendment to replace the word méfait in English with the word tort, which in my view much better reflects the notion of harms. And Ms. Thomas is suggesting 4 meetings on this. I have no doubt that we could spend many meetings on this, but realistically, if we want time within the parliamentary session to do this study, I would suggest that Ms. Thomas request 2 meetings. We could adjust if we need more. I think if we kept it to 2 meetings, we would have a better chance of putting this study onto the committee's timetable.
Is your hand up? Excuse me? All right, thank you. Would you answer that question, please, Ms. Thomas? With regard to the proposal of Mr. Shampoo. I actually didn't quite hear your proposal, Mr. Shampoo. Was it to change the French version of harms? And what would you propose that it say?
Remplacer le mot méfait.
I would suggest replacing the word méfait with the word tort, which better reflects the notion of harms. I would also suggest replacing 4 meetings, at least 4 meetings, with a minimum of 2 meetings.
All right. All right. Ms. Baron, did you have your hand up before? But I do have an amendment which we may want to vote on quickly. We don't have a lot of time left, but go ahead, Ms. Baron.
Thank you, Chair. I will speak quickly. I appreciate being here and that I'm coming in to cover at a time when this important motion is coming forward. Thank you to Ms. Thomas. If you would entertain the idea, Ms. Thomas, I wanted to, and through the Chair, of course, I wanted to propose a friendly amendment to the motion, just to specifically add a piece of information that the motion precise, the Minister of Heritage and his department be invited to testify to explain the government's delay in forcing online platforms to monitor and remove illegal content. I wanted to put that forward as a possible friendly amendment to specify a little bit further within the motion.
Oh, all right. Thank you, Ms. Barron. That would be a sub-amendment. So we will have to deal first with Martin's amendment. And I don't know if the clerk could read it for me, please. He's replacing, I know, hold a minimum of 2 meetings. And in the French version, to change the word harms. Could you read it, please, clerk?
Yes, Madam Chair. So the amendment of Mr. Champoux is to change in the French version une étude sur les torts que causent aux enfants et aussi plus tard dans la motion qu'il examine les cadres juridiques visant à
and examine the legal frameworks to prevent the harm caused by online access. The English version would not change with that replacement of a word in the French.
Motion, is it okay if I do that in French?
But it would change with the removal of 4 meetings to 2 in the English version, though, and the French version.
Okay, so I'll just read it out. Que conformément au paragraphe 108.2 du règlement, le comité
that pursuant to Standing Order 108.2, the committee undertake a study on the harms caused to children, women, and end by the ease of access to and online viewing of illegal sexually explicit material and the extent to which online access to illegal sexually explicit material contributes to the prevalence of violence against women and girls and sex trafficking in Canada, that the committee hear from organizations, victims, and law enforcement experts, that the committee hold a minimum of 2 meetings to that end, that the committee consider legal frameworks to prevent the harm caused by online access to illegal sexually explicit material, and that the committee report its findings and recommendations to the House.
Right. Now, I will call the question. Those in favor of the amendments that Martin put in?
Madam Chair, sorry,
yes.
I did have my hand up. I was hoping to speak to
that.
Oh, I
am sorry. Because your hand had remained up since you first intervened. I didn't know if it was still up or down. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. Madam Chair, I understand Mr. Champoux's suggested amendment. We already do have a number of studies that are on the table, and I know that those obviously take precedence. We've agreed to them before this one. But I don't see how degrading or taking this down to 2 studies makes it any more doable. I mean, it's still in the queue after the rest that are being prioritized before this one. And I do believe that this is an important subject matter, and to only do 2 meetings just doesn't seem sufficient. So I would just, I guess, very respectfully and very kindly, I'm asking for his support in keeping it as 4.
Martin.
Yes, I agree with the spirit of the motion, Ms. Thomas. I do. What I fear is that when comes time to scheduling the studies, say after studying a bill or if a witness can't come, when we will have time to give to this study, we'll see that it's a 4-meeting study and it might get pushed a bit further and we'll choose a shorter one instead. But I think this is a worthy study, and I think that by asking a minimum of 2 meetings, this would leave the door open to having 4 if we believe it's necessary. I'm certainly open to adding meetings if we feel it's relevant. I simply want to contribute this respectfully, but I think that by saying a minimum of 2 meetings would simply give us a better opportunity to get to the study, given the current session. Thank you.
Mr. Housefather, Anthony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just very briefly, in the hope of, again, trying to achieve consensus on this quite quickly. Monsieur Champoux is absolutely right that the word méfait should be replaced by tort. Méfait is not the right match to the English version, and I think Rachel noted that as it's okay with her. And I would also say that just to accept this isn't much because we're saying it's a minimum of 2. We could go to 4. We could go to whatever, and hopefully we could just agree and move on. So I'll support the amendment. And I'd also just mention, though, that the NDP one that was brought up, I don't think ties to this motion, and I would maybe ask Ms. Barron to reconsider that. In any case, thanks so much.
Thank you. Ms. Thomas, we don't have a lot of time. I would like us to finish this today before we adjourn. So would you accept Mr. Champoux? Look, I'm going to call the vote. All right. So those in favor of Mr. Champoux's motion, please raise your hand, or I don't know, maybe would you like it called? Would the chair call it? Those in favor? I cannot see the other hands, clerk. Keep your hands up, please, guys. I'm looking for the ones on the floor.
Chair, could I ask for clarification?
No, 1 minute. No. We're just counting a vote, please, Ms. Barron. How many on the floor, please, clerk?
3 hands on the floor, Madam Chair.
Okay, so then those opposed, the motion carries. Now, we have very little time, Ms. Barron, and Mr. Housefather was making. Can I hear your sub-amendment, please, to the amended motion?
Thank you, Chair. And I definitely don't want to get us off track as somebody that's coming in to fill in right now. It was to specialize specifically. So the amendment that I was suggesting states that the motion precise, the Minister of Heritage and his department be invited to testify to explain the government's delay in forcing online platforms to monitor and remove illegal content.
So you're asking for the minister to appear on this 2-meeting study. Is that what you are asking?
Yes, I wanted to specialize to see if we can have the minister respond to the specifics that was stated in that sub-amendment. Yes.
That does not seem to change the intent of the motion, so I guess I will accept it, but I'm going to have to ask you if you want to intervene. I notice Lisa's got a hand up. Let's do this because we have to leave this place soon. So Anthony, or Lisa first and then Anthony. And if Ms. Thomas wants to weigh in on this very quickly, guys.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would say I agree with my colleague, Mr. Housefather, that motion would change the intent. If the intent of this motion is to study online harms, it has nothing to do with how quickly anything has been implemented in the Heritage Department. So those are my 2 cents. I think it does change the intent of the motion.
Anthony.
Thanks so much, Hedy. I just wanted to echo that. Rachel, the motion that Ms. Thomas put forward is a neutral motion that basically says we're studying one component of what would be online harms, which relates to exploitation of children, illegal sexual, right? I mean, that doesn't relate to when a bill would or would not be tabled, which is much broader than the scope of this motion. I think it would be a receivable amendment if you said we want to invite the Minister of Heritage to testify on the motion, but not the way it was worded. And I don't, anyways, I think it creates a non-neutral motion and I don't support it. But I would have, if they just wanted the minister to testify, that would be one thing, but the way it was worded, no.
Are you, I thought she was asking for the minister to testify and nothing more. But I guess I was mistaken. Ms. Barron, I think we should call the question if no one has anything to say. Those in favor of Ms. Barron.
Actually, Madam Chair.
Sorry,
no,
who is this?
It's Chris.
Sorry, Chris.
Chris from the floor.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to echo what Anthony has contributed on this point, and I know the honourable member is new as she was introduced, but this is my understanding, and I know, having been on 1 or 2 committee studies over my few years, the minister typically gets invited. So I'm not I don't really understand the nature of this sub-amendment except to ratchet up the tension in this committee. It doesn't achieve the objectives. The committee is going to invite the minister whether the sub-amendment is here. I think we have several amendments or several motions on the floor where the minister is coming to appear anyways. He will eventually get a frequent flyer card at this motion. So I really don't understand the intention of this except a little dig at the end. And again, it's something the committee is always welcome to invite the minister, something that we can always keep doing. I see Ms. Barron's hands up, and I'd just, Madam Chair, my hand will go right back up. For real, I can't put up my virtual hand. So I will go back up, let Ms. Barron speak, and I'll respond.
I will let Ms. Barron speak. There's a chair. But Ms. Barron, I think you're getting the gist that asking for the minister to attend is something this committee does anyway, nearly always. We say, can the minister come and tell us what he thinks? But if you intended to change, as Mr. Housefather is suggesting, the whole intent of the motion, I cannot allow it to even be voted on because it would be out of order. So, do you want to clarify very quickly?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I will speak very quickly. I appreciate the comments made, and I take those suggestions, very much to heart here. And so the intention is to have the minister attend, to be able to, more specifically, to be invited to testify as part of this study. So the ultimate intention was for that.
That's what I thought your intention was. So now, can I call the question, please? Those in favor of Ms.
Wait, Chair.
Yes,
can you just, sorry, it's Michael Koto. Can you just tell us what we're actually voting on? Is it the amendment, or you've ruled it out of order?
No, Ms. Barron has removed it because she intended it to be to ask the minister to appear. So what she's suggesting is that we add in the motion and to ask the minister to appear. Okay. And so that's really what we're voting on.
So the motion currently is the original, well, the motion is, I mean, what we're voting on is the amendment, motion, just to bring the minister here with the original, motion and the amendment.
No, not the original.
Well, it's the motion as amended, right?
Yes, the motion is amended to add and to ask the minister to appear.
Okay, thank you.
That's what Ms. Barron is suggesting. And,
Chair, may I?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes, Ms. Thomas.
I'm sorry, if you could confer with the clerk, I don't think that's quite true. We're not voting on the amendment, and we're not voting on the motion as amended. We are only voting on the amendment.
We are voting on the sub-amendment, which is going to amend the amended motion. Or the motion as amended by Mr. Shampoo's amendments.
My understanding
so
is
it's no longer the original motion. It has been amended by Mr. Shampoo's amendment, which everyone agreed with. So it's now an amended motion, and we are adding a sub-amendment to the amended motion to ask the minister to appear. That's exactly what it is technically. Okay.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, I just don't think you've clarified. Perhaps you could ask the clerk to specify what we're voting on, just so everyone knows precisely what it is.
Yes, Ms. Thomas.
Thank you.
Clerk.
Ms. Barron, just before I respond to Ms. Thomas, can I get where in the motion you would like that inserted, please?
Yes, thank you. Just at the end of the motion, specifying that the Minister of Heritage and his department be invited, to testify as part of the study.
Sorry, that exact wording? I'm sorry, I'm just making sure I actually have this right. So after reporting to the House, you want to also include and that the minister and his department be invited to testify as part of the study?
That the Minister of Heritage and his department be invited to testify as part of this study. Yes, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you,
I'm
Clerk.
just going to add that in. Okay, so and that. And then to come to yourself, Ms. Thomas, thank you very much. So this is Ms. Barron's amendment to your motion, which has been amended. So the question would be on the amendment of Ms. Barron. however the committee wants to decide that.
Now, I will call the question for the committee to vote on this amendment that's to the amended motion that Mr. Mott we agreed on. Will we please call the vote? Those in favor of the amendment to the amended motion? Those in favor? I see no hands up. Those opposed? I don't know. Am I muted or something? Those in favor of Ms. Barron's amendment as read out by the clerk. Those in favor, can I see your hands? I see no hands.
Can you see my hand?
Yes, except for Ms. Barron's hand.
Okay.
Okay, those opposed. May I see your hands? So what we're having is people are abstaining on this motion?
And 4 hands in the room.
Yes, I don't know who is in the room, 4 hands in the room, so that the motion does not carry Ms. Barron. I'm very sorry. And so thank you very much. And given that, so now we have Ms. Thomas's motion that's been amended by Mr. Shampoo, and that is now the motion that we're carrying forward. And so that's been agreed on by everyone. And I think I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Wait. Shouldn't we officially have a vote on this, Madam Chair? I don't think it's on Ms. Thomas's motion as amended.
Amended. I thought we did that. I thought we already did that.
No, we need to, Madam Chair, I think we need to have a vote to actually accept the motion now that it's
as
been
amended. Okay, all right. Well, somebody's going to have to read it because the amendments came in different parts. So will the clerk please read it?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay. That pursuant to Standing Order 1082, the committee undertake a study on the harms caused to children, women, and men by the ease of access to and online viewing of illegal sexually explicit material, and the extent to which online access to illegal sexually explicit material contributes to the prevalence of violence against women and girls and sex trafficking in Canada. That the committee hear from organizations, victims, and law enforcement experts, that the committee hold a minimum of 2 meetings to that end, that the committee consider legal frameworks to prevent the harm caused by online access to illegal sexually explicit material, and that the committee report its findings and recommendations to the House, and that the Minister of Heritage and his department be invited to testify as part of the study.
No, that is not.
I'm so sorry. No, I apologize. Sorry. You're right. That was not adopted. My apologies.
It ends at House. I thought we already voted on this, but I may be very mistaken. I'll call the vote again. Those in favor of the amended motion as per Mr. Shampoo's amendments, please raise your hand.
And 5 hands in the room.
I cannot see the room, clerk.
5 hands in the room.
All right, so the motion carries. Thank you very much. Those opposed? I see lots of little yellow hands up, but I don't know if that means you're still up or not. Okay, well, thank you very much. Now, may I entertain a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Est-ce qu'on vote sur la motion pour adjourner?
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Bye.